If you enjoy what you hear here today, please consider supporting me on my Patreon page. Every dollar helps, and you get to see content that you won't see here. Chapter 40. The Calm Within the Storm. That night. As ponies tucked themselves into bed, they continued on forwards. As ponies said goodnight to their loved ones and tucked their foals into bed, they formed a shadow across the land darker than the night itself. Stallions, mares, and foals throughout Equestria believed they were safe in their beds, that the threats they had heard so much about were a long way away from their comfy lives and happy families. They were so very wrong. The changeling swarm didn't tire. Purpose forced them onwards throughout the night. It didn't stop for anything, each drone having a clear objective to fulfill. Only those foolhardy travelers caught in their path warranted any kind of attention, usually a few drones briefly breaking away from the rest to pick off the unfortunate souls. It would always be a short and quick task, those drones rejoining the swarm, leaving nothing but cadavers in their wake. Fort Hurricane, Ponyville, Manhattan, Van Hoover, Las Pegasus, each was a target for the swarm, the former three most of all. Each was soon to face the Empress's wrath, and then see the ponies' response. That night, those little ponies would sleep comfortably in their beds. Even those remaining awake would enjoy the bliss of the bright night sky. They would all know peace that night, and peace of another kind in the morning to come. The peace brought about by death. For while that night the streets remained clean, soon they would become rivers of blood. Blood that would, by all intent, pave the way to changeling victory. The changelings would let them sleep that night. It was but a simple act of kindness. But war waits for no such things, and was fleeting at best. All in the swarm knew what was to come, knew what was expected of them. From simple drone to powerful changeling queen, each was ready to perform to the best of their abilities in the name of Immortalis. An empress who was watching all that transpired with great interest and equally great confidence. Canterlot.
Wow, it looks all posh and stuff,
Valiant childishly remarked as the colt ran slightly ahead of his parents. Guards in the hallway gave Valiant but fleeting glances, then returning to their stoic stance as the sentinels watched over the castle. It was mostly the lunar guard out at the time, with the moon having risen to its full majesty and the sun long having fallen to sleep. And, all had to note, it was almost certainly past the colt's bedtime. But as it was, they had been rather busy. Being moved into the castle from their home in the city was no small thing.
No running in the halls, Valiant,
his mother scolded him.
This is the princess's home. You'll respect it like any other. But I've never seen you inside before, at least not this far in,
Valiant Snow protested. You do want to make a good impression for the guard, don't you? Broadsword stated, knowing just what to say. And imagine what would happen if the princesses came around the next corner. The answer would probably be an amused chuckle, but nevertheless, Valiant gave a quick yelp before slowing down and walking next to his parents, trying to act all official and disciplined like a guard. This did cause his parents to titter at their son's expense, but it was short-lived as one last corner led them to the two rooms they were seeking out. All right. These are the rooms the princess provided, Broadsword announced. Left one is ours. Valiant, the one on the right is yours. They were located in the royal wing of the castle, only a hallway or two away from Princess Celestia's personal chambers and the room where Twilight Sparkle had once lived as a filly. The Princess of the Sun had thoughtfully provided the previously empty rooms for her captain of the Solar Guard and his family during such a troubling time. There were very few safer places in the whole of Canterlot after all. Meanwhile, Cardus' family and the other changelings had all been given accommodations in the guest suites within the castle that were typically provided to visiting dignitaries and the like. Canterlot Castle always had a surplus when it came to such accommodations, so finding the space for those changelings fortunate enough to avoid assimilation was a non-issue. Every single one of them was certainly luxurious, the changelings never having lived in such a space before, though the rooms in the royal wing were certainly that little bit above those in the guest wing of the castle. Valiant, quite typically, volunteered to inspect his room before that of his parents. Opening the rather ornate door, he found himself in a large room where most of his personal items had already been moved over earlier that day. His toys were neatly arranged in various locations around the room, and a bed larger than Valiant had ever seen was sitting against the back wall.
Wow, awesome!
Valiant voiced his approval, jumping onto the bed and proceeding to use it like a trampoline. Valiant, what did I say? Broadsword stated.
Guards don't need to be so guardy in their own rooms,
Valiant retorted.
I'm on break.
Broadsword went to tell him that guardy wasn't really a word, but a slight kick from his wife told him to let their son just enjoy the moment. With their son having a blast with his own room, they decided to leave him to it and check out their own in the meantime. Like with Valiant, on entering their bedroom, they saw that many of their personal items had been moved over. A few books, wedding photographs, and other such things. A 4-poster king-sized bed had also been moved into the room for them, an object that was easily the largest thing in the room.
Overkill, don't you think?
Scarlet Snow deadpanned. Well, it gives us a lot of room to work with, Broadsword remarked in return.
There's nothing wrong with our own bed,
Scarlet retorted.
I happen to have a lot of good memories in it.
Broadsword blushed briefly at his wife's sultry look before shaking it off. Well, it's only temporary.
Not that we know how temporary,
Scarlet pointed out, walking up to the side of the bed and giving the mattress an experimental nudge.
Well, I can't really complain. Who gets to live in the royal wing of the castle at any point in their lives, huh?
Us, apparently, Broadsword replied. Perks of a royal guard.
I'm not sure the situation could be described as a perk, considering. What is going to happen in the next couple days?
Scarlet replied with a sigh.
Makes me wish I was still in the EUP, able to do my part.
There are ways other than fighting to do your part, Broadsword noted. Having you here to protect Valiant when I can't, that's a relief to me. Scarlet smirked.
Believe me, any changeling who tries to hurt him will wish they hadn't. I haven't lost my touch.
I'll take your word for it. Come on, let's see if Valiant has calmed down yet. Scarlet nodded in response, the two leaving their room and proceeding back into the one next door. When they arrived, Valiant indeed had stopped jumping on the bed. He was, however, laid on his back, snoring his head off as one of his hind legs twitched intermittently. More tired than he was willing to admit, Broadsword stated in amusement. We better leave him be until the morning.
Yeah, you're right,
Scarlet agreed.
Why don't we see if your changeling friends are up and about?
Fine by me. As it turned out, Valiant wasn't the only one to completely crash atop their bed in a deep and blissful sleep amidst Luna's guidance within the dream realm. Much like the colt, a slightly older young mare by the name of Uvenus mumbled in her sleep as she shifted beneath the covers. The room within the guest wing was one shared by the whole family, a double bed being up against one wall, with one single bed containing Uvenus being up against the opposing wall. Unlike their teenage daughter, Cardus and Panacea were fully aware and awake. They were stood near their sleeping daughter, talking to each other in hushed tones.
It's a little amazing how well she can sleep with everything that's happened to us lately.
Panacea noted.
You'd never be able to tell that something was wrong.
This is our daughter we're talking about. Cardus replied with a chuckle. She'd sleep through an entire invasion.
You're exaggerating.
Yeah, you're right. It's actually just a teenage thing.
Sounds like you're speaking from experience there, dear.
Panacea remarked. Come on. We were all her age once, Cardus rebutted. You can't claim you don't remember it.
Yeah, true enough. Though it seems like an eternity ago. Queen Chrysalis was still alive. Changelings were still largely regarded as myth and legend. So much has happened in just 10 years. 10 years since that wedding.
Everything always seems to stem back to our invasion, huh? Cardus said, rubbing his chin. I wonder what would have happened if it had never gone ahead.
Honestly, things may seem to stem from it, but I don't see anything happening better if it didn't happen. Things may have even been worse.
Cardus hummed. Yeah. So do I. Twilight would have died. The Empress probably would still have returned regardless. And on top of that, Queen Crudelis would still be alive.
Yeah.
Panacea sighed.
Point is, it's nice that you Venice can have some peace and normality when all of, well, this is going on.
Well, we're probably in the safest place in Equestria right now, Cardus pointed out. For however long that lasts. I hope as long as possible.
We could have overwhelmed this city and we were just one hive.
Panacea noted.
You can't deny that. You were there.
Cardus grimaced. We did overwhelm the guard pretty quick. But it's been a decade since then. They've had time to learn. We helped them do that, remember? Whatever Panacea's answer would have been, the doom and gloom was interrupted by a knock on the door. Composing themselves, Cardus and Panacea opened the door to reveal Facade standing there without his usual armor. Not interrupting, am I? I heard you talking from out here. If you were trying to be quiet, you failed miserably. The couple blushed.
Oh, well, you Venice didn't wake up.
Panacea mumbled. Doesn't mean much. That kid could sleep through an invasion, Facade retorted. Cardus nudged his wife. Told you so.
Hush you!
Panacea silenced the changeling stallion, a little irritated. So, what were you talking about anyway? Facade inquired. Nothing important, Cardus stated, limping out of the room while Panacea stayed in the doorway. What about you? What are you doing out here? Facade shrugged. Couldn't sleep. Did a bit of reading. Decided to see if you were up. I was obviously right. Seems we had the same idea, Broadsword stated as he and Scarlet walked towards the changeling from down the hall. Valiant fell asleep. Thought we'd check up on all of you. We're fine, Cardus assured. Where's Vladimir? He and some of the other in his guard were anted by Princess Luna for something or other, Broadsword answered. Doubt we'll see him until tomorrow. Things have been a little hectic for us. As the captains? I can imagine. Cardus stated in understanding. Still remember when I filled that role. Still miss it, too. Yeah, well, I think Vladimir understands your position a little more now. Like hey, he does, Cardus scoffed. He's got a new wing and he's golden. I'm stuck with my injuries and there's no quick fix. All right, hey, let's stay civil, Facade interrupted. We're all tired, no need to get tempers all riled up.
They're always like this,
Scarlet dismissed, rolling her eyes.
even between Broad and Vlad. Stallions.
Hey, I'm a stallion and I'm the perfect gentleman, Facade protested.
Until you have something to prove, or just feel like butting heads for the sake of it,
Panacea commented, sharing a hoof bump with Scarlet. I think they're ganging up on us, Facade remarked to the other stallions with a laugh. See, they're just as bad, Cardus stated. Perhaps it's just a thing with those who wear the armor of the guard, EUP or whatever.
Hey, I'm a doctor!
Panacea reminded him in protest. And you're married to him, Facade remarked, pointing at Cardus. I'm sure it rubs off. Good thing the princesses don't mind a bit of jesting within their ranks, Broadsword noted with amusement. Actually, they're responsible for their fair share, especially between one another. The queen is just as bad, Cardus added in. Princess Celestia was her mentor, wasn't she? Facade asked. And Queen Chrysalis was her mother. What a combination. Cardus chuckled. None were ever lacking in wit. Well, it's good to have personality go with what is considered the epitome of equestrian beauty, Broadsword said with a smirk. Luckily, my wife has both.
Oh, you can be charming sometimes.
Scarlet admitted with a quick kiss on her husband's cheek.
Still, I bet the same could be said for the changeling queens amongst the hives.
True enough, Cardus responded with a nod. Did Twilight Sparkle find that out for herself? I'm still surprised changelings haven't tried courting her on an hourly basis, Cardus joked. She would be quite the catch for those not yet tied down. Tell me about it, Facade stated almost dreamily. All present turned to look at the oblivious changeling with amused smiles. Seems our newest friend has a crush on the queen, Cardus muttered quietly to the others. Broadsword shook his head. Well, let him dream. Come on, let's go get a drink. So the group went off into the night, returning a few hours later to get some actual sleep before someone returned to duty in the morning. That next morning, however, would prove an eventful one. One that would shake Equestria to its very foundations.